Hey there gamer, welcome to another class analysis for Pathfinder or 3.5 D&D. Today we're looking at the Barbarian. So, what is a Barbarian? Now, I don't know about you, but there's only one guy I ever think of when I think about barbarians. And there's really only one appropriate way to introduce him.
Long ago in a distant land called Hyboria, Conan the Barbarian beat up Darth Vader and became king by his own hand. This story shall be told.
Okay, fine, enough of that. Basically, a barbarian is a savage warrior from uncivilized lands, and they can tank like nobody's business. Now, I personally tend to favor more graceful, finesse-based characters. And you can make that work, even with a barbarian, but for this class, I would really recommend a big weapon and charging straight into combat. RP-wise, I would say the barbarian should be the guy charging straight in. Oh, by the way, barbarians have to be of a non-lawful alignment. Because, they're the savage warriors from distant, uncivilized lands, with tremendous ferocity. Now, if you need a little inspiration, here are some barbarians you might want to think about. Obviously, the one I already mentioned, Conan the Barbarian, gives you just about everything you want in a mighty savage warrior. Although if you want to go back to the source material, I would recommend doing a little reading on the Norse berserkers, who are a group of guys who the class is basically based on. Now, he doesn't get the personality quite right, but in a lot of ways, He-Man is a very barbarian-like dude. And I couldn't be talking about barbarians without talking about Yang Zhilong from RWBY. She's basically a barbarian. Alright, now let's dig into what this class is all about. And I can sum that up with one facetious question. You mad, bro? Because the Barbarian is all about the rage. Now each game, whether it's Pathfinder, 3.5 D&D, or 5th edition, does rage a little bit differently. They all like to put their own spin on it. But the broad strokes are all the same. When you go into rage, you get a +4 to strength, +4 to constitution, +2 to your will saves, and additional hit points. But you take a -2 to AC and you simply can't do some skills. And these are charisma-based, intelligence-based, or dexterity-based, with the exception of intimidating, doing ride checks, and I believe you can do climb or strength checks. And that's because you've flown into a berserker-like fury and you want to crush everything in front of you. Now, how long you can rage and how often, again, sort of depends on the system. In 3.5 D&D, you can rage a number of times per day based on your level, and it lasts for a number of rounds plus your constitution modifier. With Pathfinder, you can rage for a number of rounds plus your constitution modifier. And once you've come down out of that rage, there's a brief cooldown period of, I believe it's the number of rounds that you were in rage for. But anyway, when you're in the middle of a battle, going into rage is a fantastic idea. Because you're going to be hitting harder, hitting more frequently, you'll have more health, and you're going to be drawing aggro. Because when you've kicked down the door to that orc encampment, they're not going to be paying attention to the guy with the small knife in the shadows. They're probably also not going to be that focused on the old guy with the walking stick. They're going to be looking at the big, buff dude or dudette, screaming at the top of their lungs, waving a giant sword around. Another important feature barbarians get is fast movement. This adds 10 feet to your movement speed. This helps you get where you're going faster, and it really extends the reach of your charge combat maneuvers. Oh yeah, and I should bring it up now just because it's the most major weakness of the class. Barbarians will always have terrible AC, especially when raging, because they lose a lot of their really good bonuses when they're wearing heavy armor. Another interesting feature that barbarians get is Uncanny Dodge and Improved Uncanny Dodge. This means that they can't be flanked. So if you're looking for a good rogue killer, a barbarian is the way to go. Barbarians also get trap sense. So if you're in a dungeon with traps aplenty, it might be a good idea to have the barbarian go first. Especially since barbarians also get damage reduction. This is the ability to resist a certain number of damage points right off the bat. Typically it'll start off small at around 7th level by just knocking off the first point of damage, but by the end of the game, you're resisting the first 5 points of damage. And that's pretty awesome. Now I am really fond of the rage powers in Pathfinder, because they're a great way to customize your barbarian. Basically, as you level up, you get additional features that add into your rage when you're raging, such as the ability to heal, the ability to do elemental damage, and you can also get these awesome things called totems, which basically give awesome supernatural elements to your rage, like a bunch of ghosts that fly out of you and surround you and attack your opponents, or you could just turn into a big frickin' monster. The rage powers are an awesome customization feature. I highly recommend them. Now, the most important stat of a barbarian is Constitution. This affects how much health you have, which is very important, and it affects how long you can rage for. I would say the barbarian's second most important stat is Strength, since you also get bonuses to it when you go into rage. And you want to be doing as much damage as possible in melee. Now, when you've flown into a violent fury in the thick of the battle, your AC really isn't going to help you. Now, you would have given up some major class features by wearing heavy armor, and you're taking a -2 when raging. So what you're relying on to keep you fighting is your bucket loads of health. Now, barbarians have the largest hit die at a d12, and since Constitution is what runs your rage and you want that to be as high as possible, a great secondary benefit is the fact that you are just going to have massive amounts of health. No class will ever have as much health as a barbarian, and when you factor in damage reduction, it really doesn't matter if they hit you. Barbarians also have the highest base attack bonus. That means that their base attack bonus is going to be equal to their level, and gaining additional attacks appropriately. So with your additional bonus to strength, you are going to be hitting a lot, and doing a lot of damage. A nuanced combat class, the barbarian is not. But you do have some interesting options with your skills. Barbarians get 4 skill points per level, and some of their skills are Climb, Craft, Handle Animal, Intimidate, Jump, Ride, Survival, and Swim. Now, I would recommend putting at least a few points into Charisma, so you could take full advantage of Intimidate, one of the few Persuade options that actually works in combat. Handle Animal and Ride might also be important, sort of depending on your setting. Thank you for watching this class analysis, and be sure and check out D6 Damage for more advice on character builds and other aspects of tabletop gaming.